Item H, receive a report and approve response to the San Mateo County Grand Jury report on the effectiveness of red light traffic camera enforcement. Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Last year, the San Mateo Civil Grand Jury requested information from those cities in San Mateo County that use or were considering the use of photo enforcement for red light violations. The grand jury was provided with information regarding San Bruno at that time, and at that time we were evaluating photo enforcement equipment. The grand jury examined the effect that photo enforcement had on reducing collisions, the costs associated with the equipment rental, the fines received from violations, and the impact photo enforcement has had on the courts. On June 7th of this year, the grand jury released their report on the effectiveness of red light traffic camera enforcement. To briefly summarize, the grand jury reported that photo enforcement should be used where accidents could be reduced, and that further evaluation should be based on accident reduction and not revenue generation. Excuse me. The grand jury also recommended uniformity amongst the county in photo enforcement operations and processing. The report identified that while photo technology is an effective enforcement method, violations have also increased the workload on the courts. The grand jury has asked each governing body to comment on the findings and recommendations made at the report and to approve the response at a public meeting. The draft response before you tonight informs the grand jury that San Bruno considered red light cameras, and while photo enforcement is a useful tool in providing traffic safety, we found that it was not a cost-effective method. The response does agree with the grand jury conclusion that traffic safety should be the motive behind photo enforcement, and that reducing collisions is one means of measuring the effectiveness of photo enforcement. The response also points out that each violation has the potential to cause an accident, and this factor must also be considered when evaluating the effectiveness of red light camera enforcement. The response also includes that traffic volume, the number of lanes in the intersection, and the ability for the officers to safely enforce those violations should also be considered. The response also points out that a portion of the red light fines goes to the county, and this could be used to offset the costs to the current burden on the courts. Over time, the feeling is that red light violations will drop and diminish as the public becomes aware of photo enforcement, and that the temporary increase and the temporary burden on the courts will also gradually reduce. Finally, the response indicates that the City of San Bruno remains committed to providing traffic safety. The recommendation tonight is that you approve the response to the grand jury, and that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of the chief or action?
If there's no questions, I'll go ahead and I move we approve the response to the San Mateo County Grand Jury.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.